All right, as we continue on Hannity, while President Trump continually fends off the resistance, the Clintons, you ever notice they seem to always get a free pass? Well, today the Daily Caller reporting the FBI has raided the home of a whistleblower who testified they actually gave documents pertaining to the Clinton Foundation and Uranium One to a government watchdog. You want real Russia collusion, the real story with real evidence, real proof? Well, remember the Clinton State Department, multiple other agencies, they approved the transfer of 20% of U.S. uranium to that Russian company. And by the way, interest linked to the Uranium One deal gave millions and millions to the Clinton Foundation. And just today, Judicial Watch announced that they are suing for documents about the efforts by the Obama DOJ to shut down an investigation into the foundation. What about the foundation's silence on all their donations from the Saudis and other foreign governments that we have documented on this program? Hardly a peep from the mainstream media, any of this. Here with reaction, by the way, the host of Huckabee, Mike Huckabee, is with us. Fox News contributor Tammy Bruce is back with us. You know, I look at the Uranium One deal, and I know William Campbell, and I interviewed him, and he saw the bribery, extortion, kickbacks, money laundering, and Putin's thugs here in America, Tammy. And Robert Mueller happened to be the FBI director at the time. He's getting the information. Mm-hmm. The sale went through, was approved. Yep. The money got kicked back. Not a peep in the media. No. Just like there's no peep in the media about the phony Russian dossier that Hillary paid for.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, look, the system is established to protect. And for things like this. This is why you had such a sloppy system with the Hillary campaign. There's been such a level of protection that they haven't had to be careful. And suddenly, thank goodness, because of the American people and Donald Trump, that environment changed and they were unprepared. This has been going on, well, who knows how long? Generations, certainly. Certainly through the 20th century. So the system is meant to do this. And it's, of course, it's a mutant kind of system that protects the bad guys. We're in the process of changing that, and it's going to take more than 2 years or one term or 2 years. It's going to take at least a generation to move us out of this corrupt kind of framework. And of course, it's going to fight back. And when you've got the entire monster geared to fighting back, it takes somebody really strong, and it takes the American people. This is, you know, we're the bulwark here. The legacy media has abandoned their job, and the American people are the ones now, through, thank goodness, the internet, new media, multiple modes of communication, cable television, that makes the difference. So we're going to be able to do it, but the communication framework is going to be different.
For example, Governor, so you have all these people in the Senate Judiciary. I believe, whatever the charge, they believed it all. But they didn't say a word about the charges, not 36 years ago, about Keith Ellison, emotional and physical abuse. They all love the Clintons. We know all the allegations against Bill. They didn't say a word about Avenatti. He wasn't going to give Brett Kavanaugh due process and presumption of innocence. So it's not the issue they care about. It's the politics they care about. Just like here, Russia collusion, but not if it's Hillary's dossier or Uranium One giving 20% of America's uranium to the hostile regime of Vladimir Putin. Thought Russia was so bad that they would want to join us and really get to the bottom of it.
Well, this isn't about truth, justice, or the American way. This is about raw power and keeping it. And if you lose it, then get it back, even if you have to try to overturn the results of an election. And that's why it should be so very troubling. Sean, I don't think you or anybody else in America truly believes that Bill Clinton gave a speech that was worth $500,000 in Moscow, while his wife happened to be the Secretary of State. And then suddenly and amazingly, and coincidentally, it just happened that the Uranium One deal came through. FBI director was Bob Mueller. I don't think he's investigating that while he's got this incredible unit of Democrats that he's assembled to do investigation of Russia collusion. The real Russia collusion is seemingly going uninvestigated.
All right, but Governor,
and then you
here's
have
the bottom
Dean
line.
King. Yeah.
But we're like an island here, bringing up news and information with evidence, something they don't have against Donald Trump. And yet it penetrates, and it penetrates. And I bet anything Mueller is going to use a sledgehammer to try and bludgeon in his report Donald Trump.
Well, there's no doubt about that. But the one thing that has to happen is that the president has to appoint a permanent attorney general, not a temporary like Whitaker. Maybe it's Lindsey Graham. Maybe it's Trey Gowdy. I don't know. Maybe it's Sean Hannity, for heaven's sakes.
No,
but
that's a bad
he's got to
idea.
have somebody.
I wouldn't get one vote.
Yeah, you know what? It's probably a bad idea. They'll never confirm you. That's for sure.
You're
you would
right.
never make it to the Senate.
Tammy wouldn't even vote for me.
But they've got to
She was
have
on the
someone,
Senate.
Sean.
Look.
They got to have someone, Sean, who is going to be relentless, not in trying to be harsh to the Democrats, but trying to be fair to the truth
but let
and
me
get
add,
to it no matter who it bothers.
Let me add, because the person that is going to do the best job is going to be the person that the Democrats freak out about the most. This is why the Senate, as it exists now, the newbies coming in, even with Romney, we've got to make sure the president makes it clear to Mitch McConnell and every other senator in the Republican Party that this matters, that his next attorney general must be confirmed, that they cannot allow the Democrats to muck up the waters and change this framework. Everything is at stake because the person who's right for that office, and every appointee of the president, is going to upset people, specifically because they intend to clean house. And that's what's important here.
All right, guys, great analysis. We'll stay on it. We'll do their job. Eventually, hopefully, the truth comes out.
All right, we're told the FBI has been cleaning house, trying to get rid of those nefarious characters or those that might have biases, whatever you want to call it. Not everyone is buying it, though. Former Justice Department official J. Christian Adams here to sort all this out. What can we believe? I have a tough time understanding how difficult it is to fire someone, period. But
Right.
What do you think is going on?
Well, at the FBI, they seem to move them to human resources. Neil, it doesn't make any sense to say they're cleaning house because look who they've gotten rid of. Andrew McCabe, he was found by the Inspector General to have repeatedly lied under oath. Okay, so he's gone. Peter Strzok, who appears to have been trying to sabotage the presidential election. Okay, he's gone. I mean, look, that's a good start, but the problem is bigger than that. If you read the Inspector General report, there's unnamed FBI agents who are engaged in this behavior. We haven't heard anything about them. And that barely even touches the surface, scratches the surface at this point.
You know, I mentioned it before, but I did mean it in this regard, like about the bias that was clearly evident in the Inspector General's report, and whether that had an influence or not, or triggered an investigation or not. What I've not seen is a bias toward the president, whether you like the guy or not. I haven't seen any agent texting back or forth. They might be out there praising then candidate Donald Trump. Not a lot of that. In fact, not any of that.
Well, there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, the FBI agents who might have been in favor of Donald Trump know how to do their job, and they don't use government cell phones to text those things.
No, right.
That
makes a lot of sense. All right.
Yeah, the other possibility is, Neil, that it's like a jackalope. It just doesn't exist. I mean, it's one of the two. Either they behave properly, unlike all the other anti-Trump FBI agents, or those people just don't exist.
What I also don't understand is this idea of context for some of the remarks that Strzok made. Now, of course, there was 11 hours of testimony, so I don't know what came of that testimony. But is it your understanding that there might have been context for this, that there might have been revelations we don't know about, that some of these, again, giving every benefit of the doubt here, might have been privy to information on the Russians, if there was such a thing, that was coloring their view?
Well, look, Neil, there might be, of course, but even if they knew about the Russian investigation, that doesn't excuse what they did. I mean, if they knew that there was this parallel Russia investigation taking place, that doesn't mean that you should rush out the closure memo on the Hillary investigation like Peter Strzok said he was going to do after watching the Republican convention and being nervous about Trump winning. So even if you know there's a Russia investigation, that doesn't excuse the bad behavior that was manifest.
Yeah, I'm looking at the backdrop for all of this. No matter what revelations might come to mind, some of these comments were so tawdry and almost childish. They go beyond worries about the safety of our nation state. So you're right about that. But where does this all go now? We've had this back and forth about bias at the FBI, how difficult it is. to fire people there, revelations that come to mind only well after the fact. If not for these texts, for example, they still would have been getting information, or at least Strzok would have been getting information. Andy McCabe would have still been helping out with the investigation for Bob Mueller, and we would have never been wiser.
Right, and if Trump hadn't won, we wouldn't know. That's the other frightening prospect here. Look, where does this go? The American public now knows that the top levels of the FBI were biased against a Republican candidate for president. Then after he won, that bias seems to have continued. So at least we have more information. Are people going to go to jail? Well, Andrew McCabe repeatedly lied under oath, according to the Inspector General report. Will Jesse Liu, who's the U.S. attorney in D.C., prosecute Andrew McCabe? Let's see if justice applies for everybody or if it just applies to people like Mike Flynn and Martha Stewart. We'll see whether that takes place.
You know, another thing I just wanted to step back and see is if nothing is done on this, on any of these accusations about bias, what have you, the Mueller report eventually comes out, and let's say it's damaging to the president, doesn't necessarily get too personal to him, but to those around him. Isn't the report risking being damaged goods, period, no matter who it thinks?
Yeah, it already, I think, is. I think if you look at the polling numbers, it's just astounding how little trust the American public now has in the FBI and the Justice Department because of their bad behavior. It's not for any other reason, Neil. It's because people behave badly. And so it's deserved. You know, you had Rod Rosenstein testifying yesterday, who seemed to have very thin skin. He talked about, he scolded Jim Jordan for attacking him personally. Right. Well, he's making personal decisions. These are decisions of Rod Rosenstein, not some Autotron or robot. It's him who's not giving Congress the information they're asking for. So Rod Rosenstein deserves personal attacks for not behaving personally like he should.
It's a mess. J. Christian Adams, thank you very much. And try to stay cool this weekend. It's going to be hot where you are. It's going to be hot everywhere here.
Our opening monologue tonight, CNN fired their contributor, Mark Lamont Hill, for his outrageous comments about Israel. But it's only the latest example of insanity at the so-called Facts First network. Here's some more of their hysterical, insane, crazy, biased coverage.
Is this president trying to impersonate Hugo Chavez, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, Vladimir Putin?
What a great case officer Vladimir Putin is. He knows how to handle an asset, and that's what he's doing with the president.
When do we see almost a shadow government come out and say, we cannot side with the government?
Why is President Trump showing sympathy for white nationalists and other hate groups?
What does that tell you in America that in one generation called you? What does that tell you, Don?
We can surely say his words have absolutely emboldened white supremacists.
16 tweets today to start the new year, some of them deeply disturbing. These are the messages from a person who is not well, from a leader who is not fit for office.
Now, he's President Snowflake, okay? Everything he said, oh, they're mean to me and they don't like me and I just don't understand it and it's not fair. This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part.
All right, now we bring in Joe Concha, media reporter for The Hill. And I guess my favorite in all of that is Van Jones or maybe Dr. Humpty Dumpty giving his diagnosis.
Yeah, I don't think we should ever really be giving, with somebody, as somebody who's married to a doctor, you probably don't want to play a doctor on TV when you're basically, doing a diagnosis from afar. Yeah, that's never a good look. Look, obviously Mark Lamont Hill, Sean, had to be fired in this situation. You mentioned it before, free Palestine from the river to the sea. That's right out of a Hamas script that calls for the annihilation of Israel. No question about it. I'm not big on firings and in these sort of situations, but this was unavoidable. But here's the thing. CNN has somewhere to around 40 to 50 contributors underneath their umbrella. So firing Mark Lamont Hill isn't that hard of a thing to do because you have 3-4 dozen other people you could just plug in there. The other bigger names that you showed during that montage, people that are on the air more, people that are anchors on that network or host shows, they're a lot harder to fire in these situations. I'm not calling for them to would be fired. Because, look, if we were to fire every single person that called the president a racist or a fascist or questioned his mental health on national television, 90% of this industry would be working at Walmart for the holidays. Yeah.
I am arguing it's literally almost every second of every minute of every hour of every day. Stormy, stormy, stormy. Russia, Russia, Russia. S-hole, S-hole, S-hole. Michael Avenatti TV. It's
not anymore.
They say they're reporters. I'm a talk show host. I do some objective reporting, investigative reporting, do a lot of opinion. I'm the whole newspaper. But they say they're news. They're dishonest.
Well, then that's the thing, right? I mean, if we were to talk about, say, a Don Lemon, for example, he's called an anchor on the network. He's somebody who gives opinions. It gets confusing after a while. Same thing with Anderson Cooper or Chris Cuomo. They are anchors. Therefore, they should be on there asking questions and gathering information, or Jim Acosta at White House briefings, asking questions, gathering information. Instead, all of these people share their innermost feelings on certain topics, their emotions. They debate in certain situations, and that's not what the job is. And I think that's where mistrust comes to within people watching at home and watching the media. They don't know who the anchors are from the opinion people, from the pundits anymore.
And then when they hear any of these people,
when they hear a side being given, then they don't know what to conclude from that, because it sounds like you're trying to draw the viewer to a conclusion instead of letting them draw their own conclusions. And I think that's a big problem in our industry right now, no question.
Listen, I admit I'm a talk show host. We sometimes do straight news. We sometimes do opinion. Sometimes do investigative reporting. But we tell you we do it all. They say they do one thing. They don't.